This is land. That ain't just speculation. That's something we do just can't keep.
Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack.
Honk, 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 honk. Where's your money?
Got me weird.
Ha, 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 ha. Ha, 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 ha. Let's see. I eat bars of soap for breakfast. I love bars of soap. After midnight, things get weird.
Quack, quack. Oh no. Oh no.
Let it go. Let it go. Cock.
I like that one. Quack, 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 quack. Quack, quack, quack. Quack, 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 quack. Come on, ducks.
All right, we are live on Land Speculation, live on YouTube, where tonight we'll be digging into the latest secrets and revelations about the present and future FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. Lots going on with the FBI right now that has been all over the news. Jeffrey Epstein and what the FBI may know about it that maybe they're not telling people. The FBI headquarters has been in the news, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we know, what we maybe know that others maybe don't know, and things of that sort. Talk a little FBI history, a little FBI secret transgressions and things like that, because it's craziness. This is like the craziest building. There's lots of secrets to this place. And we'll dig in. We'll dig in as best we can here tonight on Land Speculation. All right. Well, we are live here tonight, and we will. Let me see. Let's try to. We'll pull up a little shot there of the FBI headquarters, and then we will also pull ourselves up here. So I was trying to wait to the end of the hockey game tonight to start streaming, and this hockey game has just dragged on and on and on here tonight. The first round of the NHL playoffs between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. So a battle between the U.S. and Canada, two very natural, apropos hockey locales. Edmonton in Canada and Miami, Florida, you know, where hockey is a birthright. They're in Miami, Florida. I was remarking on the Discord that it does feel, I don't know. I kind of enjoy the fact that while we have like sustainability police that are so obsessed with squeezing every last drop of sustainability out of everything that we do that they insist that we use paper straws that don't work at all instead of plastic straws, and yet you don't hear a peep out of these people about the fact that we have a professional NHL hockey team that plays hockey games on a man-made ice rink in the middle of a giant air-conditioned arena 80 times a year in the sweltering heat of downtown Miami, including now in June when it's the middle of summer. They play in Fort Lauderdale, but it's the same difference. Oh, look at that. The Edmontons just won. The Edmonton Oilers, the Canadians, just won. They just beat the Florida Panthers, and the Edmonton fans are going nuts right now. And that's kind of the outcome. I mean, that outcome was very predictable. Every time these games go to overtime, it's pretty easy to figure out which team is going to ultimately win. This one, they must have won that with only a few seconds left in the overtime. They were going to go to a second overtime, but I think the Florida Panthers went on to power play. So, yeah, the Canadians beat the Americans here tonight. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's yeah, how much time was left when they scored that goal? It can't have been very much. They were really, that Florida goalie was very talented. I was a little surprised that the Edmontons didn't score more earlier in that overtime period. Nice job by the goalie of holding out for as long as he did. That eventually the Edmontons managed to squeeze it out here. So now they're going to fly. Well, I guess they'll play one more game here in Edmonton, up in Canada. Then they'll fly the entirety of both hockey teams and all their equipment on an intercontinental airplane flight down to Miami, Florida, which is another thing we don't care about at all when it comes to sustainability, is the fact that we fly these sports teams across the country with massive amounts of gear for utterly superfluous athletic competitions, wasting astronomical amounts of carbon, or I guess spewing astronomical amounts of carbon into the atmosphere. And like nobody cares about that because everyone likes sports. In fact, we fly more teams farther and farther than we ever have before. And yet, you and I, the ordinary people of this country, are the people that are basically on the hook to, be drinking out of the paper straws, because that's what's going to save the earth. Okay, this is not a sustainability rant stream. We're going to talk about the FBI headquarters. I do like sports because they prevent war, Jeanette. We're talking. There are different things going on simultaneously here. I mean, I don't necessarily support a lot of the paper straw stuff, and I also don't really care if we fly sports teams around the world. But yes, sports teams prevent war and violence and all that kind of stuff. So sports is a good thing because it allows us to live in sort of superficial tribal mechanisms where the millions of years of evolution into our current human species, in which we have been almost exclusively in small tribal bands of highly threatened defensive creatures that fight each other constantly, now has an outlet. You know, we tell everyone, like, live in a civil society in giant cities in enormously dense populations, and somehow that's going to work out. You need a little bit of sports, or else people are going to go crazy and get into, like, wars and kill each other. Sports allows you to pretend like you're killing other people, even though, and engaging in war, even though it's just on a sports field against another team. But, you know, you talk to, like, sports fans, they get really, really, really into it. So all of that can be true simultaneously. Okay, well, or video games, maybe, but you got to be part of, like, a tribe. There's like a bloodlust to sports. I think video games that's like a different outlet to me than the, like, tribal bloodlust you get. Like, have you ever been to, like, a college football game? That's where you really, really, really get, like, deep tribal bloodlust between the different opposing sets of fans. So Okay, anyway, this is again, this is not supposed to be like a stream where we go on and on about sustainability and sports and all that kind of stuff. But the hockey game was on, and the Edmonton Oilers were successful, not to be confused with the Tulsa Oilers. There's a hockey team in Tulsa called the Oilers, and that hockey team in Tulsa plays in the same arena where, do you guys remember back in 2020 when everything was on COVID lockdowns and Donald Trump was like desperately trying to relaunch his presidential campaign in June of 2020, and he held like a big rally in Tulsa, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez like trolled the Trump staff because she got like a bunch of TikTok kids to sign up as though they were going to like attend the Trump rally, and so the Trump people thought like hundreds of thousands of people were going to come to this rally, and in fact only like maybe 10,000 people showed up. And then they had this big rally in this arena when COVID was still going around, and like Herman Cain ended up dying because he was one of the people that was in the crowd in that rally, and he caught COVID, and he was like an older guy, and COVID was really bad to the older guys, and he ended up dying. And the people on the left thought that was like the funniest thing in the world because, you know, our political opponent died because he made a stupid decision. That's the kind of that's the sort of discourse we have in the United States these days. Okay, anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. Guys, if you wouldn't mind dropping a like and a subscribe in the video as we get out of the gate here tonight, I appreciate that. Those likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you know when we're on. If you look to our description has the link to our Duck Discord, where you can always hang out with us. And then, of course, the Duck Fund is our 24/7... It's not PayPal anymore. It's a different link. But if you want to send us money, you can use the link. I'm going to have to get used to that. It's like I do the little plugs so absent-mindedly by now that some of the details have changed, I have to get used to the different details. So if you want to send us money, the Duck Fund link is there in the description. So that's freshly up and working again. So this is kind of an overdue stream, and I've been wanting to drill down for a while because I don't know if you guys remember here on Land Speculation on YouTube, but it was not all that long ago that we were the talk of the town here in Washington, D.C., because back in 2022, in October of 2022, we became somehow like the go-to experts on the FBI headquarters and the mysterious explosions that happened at the FBI in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night for multiple hours. Massive bangs and explosions. Super, super, super mysterious. And nobody in Washington seemed to care. There seemed to be no emergency personnel showing up. It was just like business as usual. That there were loud bangs that sounded like bombs going off on the roof of the FBI headquarters, this giant brutalist behemoth building in the middle of downtown Washington. And we streamed this, and it caught fire and was frankly one of our... We certainly gained more subscribers from that incident than any other thing that we've streamed. We actually had a lot more viewers at the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. But, I don't know, somehow a lot of people online got really, really, really interested in this FBI headquarters thing because it was mysterious as hell. The FBI has a known history of being, well, allegedly quite nefarious. There is quite a history when it comes to the FBI of just some of the things that, like, we know that they have done. Can I pin the last link that you posted? Let me see here. Can I pin it? Okay, I'll try. Did it work? Is that the right one? Let me know. Okay. So anyway, yeah, the FBI has a pretty crazy history of doing like kind of crazy stuff, and stuff that we we know some of the stuff they've done is like really, really, really shady over time, and yeah, it's a little bit something. It's definitely a little bit something. What did I do with this? Okay, I pulled this up like just a minute ago, and somehow it's like already been deleted. How could that be? How could that be? Is the FBI like mysteriously intervening on my machine? Like that's something they absolutely can do. So we know that from 1950 to 1971, the FBI ran a clandestine program called COINTELPRO, which was basically a surveillance, infiltration, and sabotage program that was targeting civil rights leaders, including Martin Luther King, allegedly, with blackmail threats. That they used illegal wiretaps, tried to disrupt marriages, and yeah, this was, I guess, some people burglarized an FBA field office in 1971 and basically leaked that this was going on. They had been basically allegedly harassing Martin Luther King for a long time. They'd been sending him letters saying he should kill himself, along with recordings of his alleged extramarital affairs. They were basically trying to, allegedly, bait Martin Luther King into committing suicide. There were secret blackmail files that were pretty sure existed somewhere in the FBI headquarters. There was dirt on everyone from JFK to LBJ. Of course, Martin Luther King, that seemed to be a particular fixation of them, and there's a lot of people that still think shady things happen at the end of Martin Luther King's life. We know that there's like a vault of very weird psychic spying projects and things like that were happening in the FBI. But the FBI was keeping like extensive files on alien abduction cases in this building. We know that there have been a whole bunch of mysterious deaths, at least allegedly tied to whistleblowers around FBI investigations, FBI agents. There's Danny Casolaro, who was a journalist investigating a supposed octopus conspiracy that linked the FBI with some software and global arms deals, and he died in 1991 in a hotel bathtub. His death was ruled a suicide, but he had left a note ahead of his death saying they made it look like a suicide. That one's like creepy. Again, these things are alleged. Yeah, so there's like mysterious stuff when it comes to the FBI. There's definitely some shady stuff. At least allegedly, there's some shady stuff when it comes to the FBI. And now suddenly the FBI has been well back in the news over the course of the last couple of weeks. Not just related to its headquarters, although that has been in the news also. There has also been a lot of news around the FBI in general. The FBI in general. Because Donald Trump, when he came into office, suggested that he would basically make a lot of stuff super, super transparent that had been maybe, not so transparent before. And some of that stuff, like the JFK files, I guess they have leaked. But a lot of other stuff, not so much. Because it was just within the last few days that FBI Director Kash Patel was asked on a TV interview about Jeffrey Epstein and basically gave the blankest answer. He basically said that the death of Jeffrey Epstein to him looked like a suicide, and it's the weirdest answer because it seems like Kash Patel is intentionally trying to make it seem like he's hiding something, or at the very least, it seems like he's hiding something, and he answers like so blankly and in such a kind of like, I'm going to answer in a way that makes it look like I'm hiding something kind of way, and basically just sort of rambles about how it was probably a suicide. He then punted to Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, who is a person a lot of people on the kind of Trump train tend to trust Dan Bongino because they think he's honest. But Dan Bongino, too, basically punted on this. And I guess they claimed there was some video in the Epstein prison that they were able to recover mysteriously now after several years that showed there was no one there but Epstein. And so a lot of people are out there doubting that any of this was actually particularly authentic, and that maybe they are perhaps still hiding something related to Jeffrey Epstein. Even this administration that has pledged transparency in all these different ways is maybe still hiding something related to Jeffrey Epstein. And it's also just in the last few months that after Jeffrey Epstein mysteriously committed suicide in his prison cell, suddenly now Virginia Giuffre, who was photographed, of course, with Epstein, with Ghislaine Maxwell, and with Prince Andrew here, herself mysteriously committed suicide in Australia after having said several years ago that she would not commit suicide, and that if she ever did, it wouldn't have been a suicide. So there's definitely some shady stuff going on. Ghislaine Maxwell, by the way, is still out there. She's still hanging on, and people have kind of forgotten about her. And Ghislaine Maxwell was just sitting in prison in Tallahassee, Florida, and was given like an extremely ritzy, like one of these kind of resort prisons, which is basically like living in a hotel. Supposedly that's where Ghislaine Maxwell is for 20 years, and it's apparently really, really, really nice, despite all of the heinous things that supposedly she was involved in that everyone cared very much about putting her away for. So it seems like she was able to strike some kind of a deal here. So the Epstein stuff continues to be shady and weird, and no, I don't believe they released the video of that they said existed from within the prison. And so, like, what's Trump hiding here? You know, Trump said he'd release everything, but every time they ask him about Epstein, he gets real dodgy. And now Kash Patel has gotten dodgy, and now Dan Bongino's gotten dodgy. The FBI, I don't know, guys. Like, you'll have to decide for yourselves here. Is the FBI hiding something when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein? You know, I don't know. Like, it seems pretty dodgy, all the stuff they're saying. And, you know, frankly, I was somebody who was, like, very akin to believing the narrative that Jeffrey Epstein perhaps had committed suicide. But now, I don't know, they keep acting dodgy here. I'm a little bit on the fence now. You guys will have to tell me what you think here about Jeffrey Epstein and the FBI. So the FBI is back in the news. The FBI is back in the news, and boy, we did a very, very, very deep dive into the Epstein case a couple of years ago. And we went through Epstein's entire background. We talked about some of the weird ties he had around the world. We talked about how he was recruiting these victims. We talked about this weird sequence of cases he's been involved in. And, of course, about how his life ended mysteriously in this prison cell. And you have to think about this in the context of some of the other, like, things that we know the FBI was involved in that, like, literally were quite shady. It would be one thing if the FBI were just an agency that, you know, because they're involved in intelligence, people get kind of conspiratorial around them. Like, there are numerous documented cases in the history of the Federal Bureau of Investigation in which the FBI, like, very quite literally has been outed as having allegedly been involved in nefarious stuff, nefariously trying to out or to off people, nefariously trying to cover stuff up, etc., etc., etc. This is not like an agency with completely clean hands, at least allegedly, historically. And so, I I don't know, how much do we really trust them here? Clearly not very much, according to the votes we have here so far on our poll. 100% of people think the FBI is hiding something on the Epstein suicide. This is not the only reason the FBI has been in the news lately, and that's really what we want to talk about here as we dig in here tonight, because our link to all this, I can't give you all the secrets of the Epstein case here. We can muse about things, but I don't know any more than most of you do about the Epstein case. I did a fair bit of research on Epstein, the person, and I do know some things, but I don't know any of the insider stuff about the Epstein thing. But I do know a little bit when it comes to the FBI headquarters. And that's what we're really going to talk about tonight, because that too has been in the news. So once again, guys, you are watching Land Speculation here on YouTube, and we are digging deep into the FBI, at least as best we can, as much as they'll let us, maybe. And we're going to continue on here in just a second. I do appreciate you guys joining us. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe on the video if you have not. The likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you guys know when we're on. Check the description for the link to our Discord, as well as then our Duck Fund is linked there in the description also. And the Duck Fund is back real and live, and you can send us money if you've been waiting to send us money because the link didn't work. Now the link works. So if your bank account was getting too big and you're like, I don't know, the rates, the Fed and all the stocks and everything, it's getting me a little bit nervous because I have too much money and I just need to send it somewhere, and you were hoping to be able to send it to Land Speculation, now you can send us money again. So please feel free. Jeanette, Annette, Ellis, James Games, you guys were the medal winners here tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us on Land Speculation on YouTube. Holly was just off the medal stand, so Holly, good to see you as well. Calming the Chaos is here, as is Ronald McFondle. We also have Lurky here in the chat, and Mr. White is hanging out with us as well. And let's see, millions of others joining us live from around the world. Okay, so what all is going on? Spyman is here also. Hey, Spyman. Spyman. And Underscore is with us as well. Spyman, very appropriate here. Very appropriate. And John Celeste. Good to see you guys. So, as I was saying, the FBI's been doing some dodgy things, we think. Maybe they're hiding some dodgy things. Well, the 2022 rooftop explosions over the top of the FBI headquarters that we recorded live on the streets of Washington, D.C. and got lots of subscribers and views for, is something that it certainly seemed like perhaps the FBI was hiding something. This was, I guess, a video from a nearby rooftop showing the rooftop of the FBI headquarters in Washington. You can see down Pennsylvania Avenue here on the right. That's the Capitol building in the background, and then in the foreground here is the rooftop of the FBI headquarters, where big explosions were happening and the white smoke was belching out into the air. And for hours and hours this went on, and everyone was very quiet about it. And it ultimately was revealed that presumably this was a steam pump that was malfunctioning, or a steam valve that was malfunctioning somewhere in the mechanical system of the building. But there were a lot of people who were skeptical about it. And it was weird. So as you guys know, the FBI has this big headquarters building in the middle of Washington, D.C. This is basically where it's located. It is one of the most prime real estate locations in all of Washington. If you wanted to be central to the other buildings in Washington, D.C., that is a pretty darn central place, because you were basically almost exactly halfway between the White House over here and the Capitol building over here. You're also very close to the Smithsonian. You're very close to most of, or many of, the other federal agencies that sit in the core of Washington, D.C., including the Treasury Department, the IRS, the Department of Labor is over here. There's a lot of stuff, and of course the whole executive branch. It's right there. You're very close to a lot of things there at the FBI headquarters. It's one of the biggest blocks in all of downtown D.C. which is interesting because the FBI headquarters is absolutely enormous. So it was a crazy night when we walked out onto the streets, and this is not our photo, but this is about where we were standing when we recorded all this. And there was a lot of feedback. And a lot of this has kind of made its way back into the news lately because the FBI headquarters is back into the news. Of course, at the time, there were a lot of people talking about this and how this whole explosion thing went down. And there was, I don't know, these were just some of the comments that were popping up around the explosions on the roof of the FBI headquarters. They found out about all the rituals and sacrifices that they have done inside that building. Now it's being cleared out, said Yosef. I guess the theory being that the FBI headquarters was full of secrets, and somebody had unearthed them, and now they needed to get rid of the evidence. So they're blowing it up on the rooftop. So said Yosef. Pat Luke said the tunnels were being cleaned out. They brought children out under the cover of night. D.C. was closed down. I don't know, these tunnels under the FBI. We'll talk about the tunnels under the FBI, full of children. Maybe they were blowing up the children on the roof, executing them or something. Then there was Bob. U.S. Marines raided the building in mid-January of 2021. Anyone remember the Ospreys flying through D.C.? Trump resigned as POTUS, turning power over to the military. Does no one remember the State Department press release? It was then immediately pulled. The Hoover building has been vacant ever since. So the hypothesis that the FBI building had already been raided and the building was actually sitting empty. Maybe it's still sitting empty to this day, so says Bob. Some others. Shakedown Street V17. The time between shots. Any last words? So the idea that the rooftop explosion sounded like people getting shot on the rooftop. User 5474669623830 was very concerned that maybe they were destroying evidence. Mom Life agreed. They were destroying, you're getting rid of the evidence. Then there was this. This is on TikTok. Flashback to 2022 when explosions were seen and heard coming from FBI building at 2:30 a.m. Lots of clips of our content there on TikTok if we start searching. Wakey normies, so says this person. And this all went back into the news in the last few days. And actually, we had a huge uptick of traffic on our channel. I get the analytics on our channel. We've had a huge uptick in traffic on our channel specific to the FBI explosions, because I guess this is getting re-recommended to people now, which is a little strange. But a lot of this is because this news, press release came out in which Kash Patel, who's the Trump's appointed director of the FBI, says that they are shutting down the FBI building in Washington, D.C. And this got people really riled up, because this has been in the news. FBI Director Kash Patel basically announced that the agency, the FBI, is leaving its Washington, D.C. headquarters. There are a few complicating aspects to this, specifically that the FBI headquarters hasn't been full in a while. The FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. is only one small portion of the FBI's facilities across the country. And when Kash Patel announced the agency was leaving the D.C. headquarters, in his description of the 1,500 agents that would be moving out of the headquarters, he didn't account for all the people that work there. That was a little weird. There are more than 1,500 people that work in that building. And he only said 1,500 would be leaving. But he also said the agency would be leaving the D.C. headquarters. And that, too, was a little bit weird. It was big news. It's a big building in the middle of Washington, D.C. This has been in the news for a long time. But the idea that the FBI would finally decide to leave was big news. It was particularly big news because it was very contradictory with this headline about Donald Trump, the guy that employs Kash Patel, saying that he planned to prevent the relocation of the FBI headquarters from D.C. to Maryland. President Trump said he plans to halt the relocation of the FBI headquarters from Washington, D.C. to Maryland. So these happened like within short succession. And this is what's been going on with the FBI. Is there's been just a constant boomeranging back and forth and back and forth and back and forth about, are they leaving this building or are they not? This is the sequence of events. This goes back to 2005, when the FBI first proposed that they should vacate their headquarters there in Washington, D.C. There was bipartisan agreement at the time that the FBI needed to move out of the FBI headquarters in downtown Washington. In 2014, this stuff all moves very slowly because it's the government. Everything moves slowly. They finally shortlisted 3 sites where the FBI might move, and it looked, in 2014, almost assured that the FBI would be moving out of the headquarters in downtown Washington, D.C. to Maryland. Greenbelt, Maryland. Well, 2017, Donald Trump comes into office. He's interested in, I guess, saving the cost of the relocation. And he immediately cancels the move. Basically says there is no reason the FBI should move. The FBI should stay in its headquarters in downtown D.C. They shouldn't leave. And he canceled the whole thing. Well, 2018-19, of course, because everything is Trump versus the world. Congress pushed back, basically saying that the FBI, in fact, does need to move out of D.C., basically citing security concerns, saying the FBI needs to move out of Washington. It's a little weird because the FBI building is unbelievably heavily secured. But they basically said they needed to move out because of security. And then in 2022, Biden basically restarted the relocation process, confirming the original site in Greenbelt, which was the selected winner. There's a whole bunch of corruption about the selection of the site. So 2023, I guess they selected the Greenbelt site. That was like pretty definitive. We're going to move again here in 2023, after having had this canceled. And then in 2024, there's a whole bunch of tension, like this thing still hasn't happened. Trump comes into office and says, nope, FBI is not moving. And then 2 months later, Kash Patel comes out and says, just kidding, yes we are, we're moving. So this has been a boomerang back and forth and back and forth. For the most part, Donald Trump has been against the FBI moving. Going back to his first administration, he was very opposed to the FBI moving out of this building for some reason. Meanwhile, Congress has been very much in support of the FBI moving, and meanwhile, the FBI building itself sits there basically half occupied. And nobody quite knows what's going on inside it. Lots and lots of tales, and we'll get into some of these tales of what some people think is going on in the FBI headquarters, because it's a little bit crazy, some of the stuff that people think is going on inside that building. And what might happen to it if the building goes away. So this was Kash Patel saying the agency is leaving. This was Donald Trump saying they're staying. This is, I guess, the headline, going back to 2023, basically saying that they were going to move to Greenbelt, Maryland, which is close to the CIA headquarters. It would make sense, just from if you believe these are just agencies that need to work together and go back and forth. If you believe other people, they don't get along and they fight with each other all the time and they try to outcompete each other, it really depends what you believe. And this is the hypothesis, that if the FBI headquarters leaves Washington, D.C., it would leave behind this giant fortress of a building. And if they were able to figure out how to knock down this fortress of a building and clear the site adequately to move in some private development, that there is the potential that they could basically move in a $95 million mixed-use mega project that would replace the building. So this would include, housing and hotels, and it would completely transform downtown D.C. if they were able to put something on that site. But They would have to basically get rid of the old FBI headquarters in order to do that. And in doing so, a lot of secrets would get left behind. The secrets of the FBI headquarters. And you may be thinking, like, this is all just hyperbole. It's just a building. You know, probably all the files are digital by now. What does leaving a building really matter? Maybe a little more than you think. Because the history of this building is actually crazy as hell. So this is the FBI headquarters. Again, it's like it is a giant brutalist behemoth. And there are all kinds of weird, mysterious mythologies about the stuff that has happened in this building, what it's connected to underground, what the 7th floor of this building amounts to. Because apparently the 7th floor is basically inaccessible even to the people that work there. It is kept on extremely high lock and key, and no one can get into the 7th floor of the FBI headquarters. The FBI headquarters is not only a gigantic building, and it has always had this weird phenomenon that the building is way larger than the number of people that work there. So, like, usually when it comes to a federal agency, there's a pretty, like, standard ratio or relationship between how big a building is, that is like a headquarters building, how big the building is, and the number of people that work there. The FBI has always had very few people working in this building relative to the size of the building itself. So that has left a lot of people wondering what the hell else is going on in this building. The FBI building basically took 35 years for them to build. The FBI building was first proposed in 1941 in the midst of some of the most nefarious government projects during World War II. That's when they decided they needed to have this giant FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. The building did not open until 1975. It took a long, long, long time. The FBI headquarters is located almost directly on the site of what used to be this creek that ran into central Washington, D.C. So back before they built the National Mall like they have today, there was actually a creek that basically went off the Potomac River and kind of curled around central Washington, D.C. And over time, they gradually turned that creek into a canal that delivered malaria into Washington, D.C., as well as goods and services. And so back in the day, when D.C. was hot as hell and they didn't have air conditioning and the government was basically part-time, this canal was how they delivered things into central Washington, and it also was part of the reason why D.C. back in the 1700s and the 1800s was a place of a lot of disease, because they had this like open creek that was full of mosquitoes and gnats and wasps and stuff that were all delivering disease all over the city. But it was an important transportation mechanism that basically ran right under the FBI headquarters. Ultimately, that creek was turned into a canal, and ultimately that canal was buried underneath the federal buildings that sit in that part of Washington. It's still down there. That creek is still basically under the surface of the city, and it has been basically boxed up. If you go down there, you could literally like take an underground canoe along this little creek, because they basically built like a little wood tunnel around it. Could you canoe all the way back out to the Potomac River? I don't know, but it is pretty weird. So the FBI headquarters was also built in this area of D.C. Somebody was asking about this in the chat. Murder Bay was the site of the FBI headquarters. In the late 1800s, a notorious slum area filled with brothels, saloons, and crime. While the worst of that era had faded by the 20th century, the name stuck as shorthand for the neighborhood's earlier conditions. So the FBI headquarters is the heart of Murder Bay. It's like an irony going on there. In the years preceding the Civil War, the area bordered by Pennsylvania Avenue, basically where the FBI headquarters is located today, which was also where, at the time, the open sewer of what was then called the Washington Canal was basically a slum area, this murder bay, in which there was rampant prostitution, lots of muggings, and lots of robberies. The population of this area increased during the Civil War as soldiers took advantage of Murder Bay's cheap alcohol and brothels. This area eventually came to be known as Hooker's Division, or just Division, and became a destination for former slaves in the aftermath of the Civil War. Of course, it was called Hooker's Division because General Hooker used to let his troops, on their off nights, run rampant through this part of Washington, D.C., taking advantage of the rampant prostitution, maybe the muggings and the robberies. Anyway, the whole reason we have the term hooker is because of basically the site of the FBI headquarters before it was the FBI headquarters. There were eventually reform movements that generally faded, and in 1928 the city leveled Murder Bay, basically knocked everything down and began building the Federal Triangle in its place. I'll talk about that here in a second. So this is what this looked like before the FBI headquarters was here. This is the site of the FBI headquarters. This is back when it was full of, I guess, murders and brothels and stuff. You know, what a good time. So underneath that site, before the FBI headquarters existed, or at least they picked a site for the FBI headquarters that was tied into this underground network where basically eventually they buried these streams into a series of sewer tunnels that all connect. And so to this day, the Potomac River is connected to the Capitol building, is connected to Union Station, is connected to the Federal Reserve, is connected into the FBI headquarters via a series of underground tunnels that house basically these buried canals and streams from way back when. And this is the site they picked. An extremely connected site via underground tunnels to the rest of the city. And you can still find some of these maps online. This is what some of those underground tunnels look like. Now, these are not public in any way. You can't really get down into them at all. But these tunnels do exist. And in theory, if you wanted to go across Washington, D.C. underground to any of these other buildings, you in theory could. Now, it would probably be a pretty miserable, damp, and very dark journey, and who knows what kinds of vermin live down there, or what else may be down there. But there are some really crazy, deeply underground, nefarious tunnels underneath Washington, D.C. I don't know that they're nefarious. They just exist. These are not the same as when people say there's like an underground subway in Washington that's secret. That's the congressional subway. Everyone knows about that. That's not what I'm talking about here. These are much, much, much more rugged underground tunnels. You could, in theory, I suppose, somehow find your way down into this stuff. But it does connect. It does connect. So, 1941, they picked this site right in the midst of the federal government doing all kinds of other nefarious programs like the Manhattan Project and things like that. It's right at the same time that the government simultaneously decides they need to do a fundamental remake of Washington. This is when they build the secret tunnel underneath the White House that connects between the White House and the Treasury, which is basically the escape route for FDR in his wheelchair. In the event the White House gets bombed, he can escape across the street to the Treasury. So it's right at the same time that they're doing that, the same time they're doing the Manhattan Project, they also decide simultaneously to build a whole bunch of new things in Washington, D.C. They decide to build a new FBI headquarters that's connected to these underground canals. They decide to build out this area that's immediately adjacent to the FBI headquarters. So this is the FBI headquarters, or this is the FBI headquarters right here. Right across Pennsylvania Avenue is this area of very identical red-looking roofs that is known as the Federal Triangle. This is right when they decide to build out all of this government infrastructure in this site. This is also an area that they basically redeveloped in 1991, in which a lot of people believe very fervently there is an underground bunker beneath the Ronald Reagan building, which is part of the Federal Triangle, that was built in the early 1990s. So this is all in the early 1940s. They decided to build the FBI headquarters, the Federal Triangle, They decide to build the tunnel between the White House and the Treasury Department. This is also when they decide to build the Pentagon. But what's more is this is also, the Pentagon's over in Virginia, because I guess the war apparatus needs a big headquarters. This is, of course, right as we're launching the whole military-industrial complex. This is also when D.C. first decides to connect everything underground via a formal series of tunnels known as the D.C. Metro System. The D.C. Metro System is first proposed in 1941. It opens in 1976. The FBI headquarters is first proposed in 1941. It opens in 1975. Over the course of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, all of these things come to fruition. And Washington, D.C. basically builds for itself this completely interconnected network of new, brutalist, highly secured things, including a series of underground tunnels that connect all of them. The Pentagon, the Metro, the Federal Triangle, the FBI headquarters. It's all coming together right at the same time, right as the military-industrial complex is growing and growing and growing and growing. And they connect all of these via even yet another set of tunnels, which is the series of steam tunnels underneath Washington that connect all of these buildings to a central steam plant that's located right down here, south of the National Mall. And back when the explosions at the FBI headquarters were happening, and they attributed it to basically explosions in the building's steam system, a steam valve that was malfunctioning. That steam, supposedly, was steam being delivered to the FBI headquarters. That smoke we saw in the air was basically being delivered to the FBI headquarters via this plant south of the National Mall through these steam tunnels that cut across Washington, D.C. Those steam tunnels, we did a stream where we went and we actually walked the vents that sit along the roadways in Washington that basically vent those tunnels. And we basically were able to track the vents that sat underneath those tunnels along the routes that we know exist of those tunnels, including one in the immediate National Mall right behind the Washington Monument that we were able to dig up amongst some trees. And we tracked them all the way down to the plant. So we know those exist. We know those tunnels exist and connect all these buildings together and actually do legitimately deliver steam to those buildings. And those steam pipes are basically delivered through a series of tunnels that look basically like this. These also are tunnels that, in theory, connect between all of these different buildings. And if somebody, in theory, wanted to get between the FBI headquarters and the White House, or the FBI headquarters and the Capitol building, they could, in theory, through these underground steam tunnels. Through the steam tunnels, actually, they couldn't get to the Capitol building. The Capitol building has its own separate network of underground steam tunnels that are full of asbestos, so they say. So it's all connected stuff. Over the course of the 60s into the early 70s, they build this giant FBI headquarters on this giant block in the heart of Washington, D.C., connected to all of these tunnels. And they build it in the brutalist style, which is designed to be as big and ugly and secure and fortress-like as possible. Giant, super thick concrete walls, huge amounts of security around the building. They built it in this kind of weird way where it looks like it's kind of on stilts. The main part of the building is on stilts. Because the theory was that back in the day, since the building basically sits right adjacent to Pennsylvania Avenue, they wanted to have it have a series of storefronts around the building, because it occupies a huge chunk of downtown D.C. That they wanted to put stores in the base of the FBI headquarters. And then on the second floor, where you see this plank here, the second floor, and there's basically nothing on the second floor. It literally is just a series of stilts that hold up the building above it. And I guess that was in part a security thing, because they wanted the actual FBI headquarters not only to be secure on the outside, but to basically be secure in that you couldn't really access it from the ground floor. You had to basically go up a very select set of stairwells up into the building. But they also built this plank up here so that in theory, and this was the idea when they built it, this is what they told the public anyway, that this big open second floor, which is basically completely exposed to the elements, they could put bleachers on that second floor during the inaugural parade. And so the general public could go up there and have like a really nice view of the inaugural parade when they inaugurate the president every 4 years, and they drive down Pennsylvania Avenue in his limo. None of this ever came to fruition, because what eventually happened is they decided the security mattered a hell of a lot more. And so the outside of the FBI building today looks a hell of a lot more like this than it does like storefronts or bleachers or public access. There are more layers of moat-like fences or moat-like walls made out of concrete that ring this building than you can shake a stick at. There are walls and then little divots and then more walls and then more divots and then more walls. And then on top of that, they put these giant planter boxes outside that are made of concrete and that are full of gravel compacted with concrete into a basically impenetrable, immovable force around the outskirts of this building. And so these are the storefronts that were supposed to be there, look kind of like this. This is the back side of the building. We've walked it. That second floor is basically just a big empty black hole, and you can't really even tell what the hell's going on there. The building in theory has this courtyard in the middle. It looks as sterile as any federal courtyard as I've seen at any of the big brutalist federal buildings. I don't know what these glowing blue orbs are in the second floor, but they are kind of weird and nefarious too, or nefarious looking. I assume that's just lighting of some sort, but man, for a floor where in theory they're lighting, the second floor is extremely, extremely dark and dingy. Now, the FBI headquarters occupies this giant footprint. It has this big courtyard. It has this big, like, cantilevered upper level to it. It occupies just a huge, huge, huge footprint. In terms of square footage, it's about a third the size of the Capitol building. And yet, very, very few people, relatively, actually work there. And there are a lot of questions about what the hell else is actually going on in this building. There have been a lot of mythologies over time about it, and part of that is because when it comes to the FBI headquarters, you actually can't really get into the 7th floor. It's a kind of crazy thing. We know that there have been a lot of very frequent unexplained upgrades to the building, especially in the upper floors. Contractors and some insiders have hinted that there is some kind of crazy surveillance tech that's embedded in the walls and the infrastructure on the upper floors of this building. To this day, there are rumors that certain floors of the building, notably the 7th floor, are off limits even to FBI agents and even those with clearance. There is a rumor that there is some kind of illegal surveillance system that is there. Again, allegedly, these are rumors. But that there is some kind of potentially illegal domestic spying operation that happens there. Now, again, I say this completely allegedly based on rumors that people talk about. Of course, we know there are court disclosures and FOIA lawsuits that have revealed the FBI has engaged in gray mail and other NSLs, national security letters, to conduct extensive surveillance without warrants on American citizens. There is also a rumor of a mysterious man that lives on the 7th floor. Basically an unknown man in a suit that walks the secure 7th floors that no one else can access late at night. This is one of these DC urban legends. But there are people that in DC that swear that this is in fact a real thing that has been seen. And it is pretty darn crazy, and we have walked the streets of Washington, D.C. at night. And we have walked by the FBI building at night. And what you will very frequently see at the FBI building late at night is that the light patterns on the outside of the building look very, very, very different floor by floor. And if we count the floors up, the first floor that was supposed to have the shops, the second floor that was supposed to have the bleachers here, that's now just the open black hole, the dark third floor, the dark fourth floor, the dark fifth floor with only an occasional office light, the dark sixth floor with also only the occasional dark office light, and then the seventh floor, what you will almost always find in the FBI headquarters late at night, is that this floor that is supposedly inaccessible to the workers is the only floor in which there are bright lights. All the lights, at least on one side, lit up at night. What the hell is going on the 7th floor of the FBI headquarters, especially late at night? What's going on the 7th floor of the FBI? What's going on in this upper cantilever that nobody seems to really know the floor plan for? You cannot get floor plans to this building, by the way. Almost every government building in Washington, D.C., if you know where to look, you can get floor plans for the buildings. You cannot get them for the FBI headquarters. They don't want you knowing what the layout of this building is. We also know what's going on in the basement. We don't know all these tunnels that we know connect into it. The buried canals, the sewer tunnels, and the metro tunnels that were built at the same time that run all around this building. We don't know what's going on with any of them or what they really connect to. And this all comes amid this announcement that the FBI may be finally vacating this headquarters. Or maybe not. Maybe Donald Trump is going to block the FBI headquarters relocation. But now he seems to be totally all for it. Like he's totally all for the FBI relocating, and people can't believe it. And it's a total about-face for Donald Trump, because back in 2017, he was totally, firmly opposed to the FBI leaving this building. And now he's kind of given it the green light. In fact, he's even kind of cheerleading it, that the FBI should move. Inquiring minds says get rid of that building. Whatever nefarious stuff may be lurking behind the scenes in that building, the FBI needs to take it out to Greenbelt, Maryland. If they do leave this building, what would they be leaving behind? Was the building in fact raided in 2021? Were the secrets extricated? Is that why nobody's in the building anymore and now it's finally expendable? That's one theory that circles on the internet. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of the sheen off of all the nefarious conspiratorializing about this building and why Donald Trump suddenly has changed his tune. It is possible that in 2021 this building was raided and that all the secrets were removed and that now the building is finally expendable. And that explains why Donald Trump was super opposed to the relocation of the building back then, and now he doesn't care. But, like with most things in Washington, D.C., things that people assume and say are nefarious are very much more often merely the product of your, let's call it everyday corruption, than they are some grand central conspiracy theory. One thing that I think a lot of people don't perhaps realize and may forget, if they did know it, is that the FBI headquarters does not sit in an isolated vacuum location in Washington. In fact, it sits very much in the heart of Washington, D.C. And most importantly, the FBI headquarters sits, in addition to sitting very close to that giant Federal Triangle building, the FBI headquarters sits but a mere 1 block away from the building that used to be known as the old post office. and which has now, to this day, colloquially been known as the Donald Trump Hotel, or the Trump Organization Hotel in Washington, D.C. Of course, the hotel is today operated by Waldorf Astoria. Donald Trump and his organization no longer control the hotel, and as such, the kind of informal get-togethers of the Donald Trump kind of MAGA crew. If you want to run into Steve Bannon in Washington, D.C., or others from the administration, you used to go hang out in the lobby of the Trump Hotel, back when Donald Trump owned that building. Now that Donald Trump does not own that building, those little get-togethers have moved to a small restaurant in Capitol Hill known as Butterworth's. So if you wanted some information, and you're coming to Washington, D.C., and you want to hang out with Steve Bannon, go to the place called Buttersworth's in Capitol Hill. Anyway, the FBI headquarters is but 1 block away, and this is actually not even accurate because you don't enter that building on this side. But the FBI headquarters that is right here is 1 block away from what used to be the Trump Hotel. Of course, Trump was forced to divest from the hotel, and he sold the Trump Hotel to Waldorf Astoria. Back in 2017, actually I guess it was, I don't think when the Trump Organization actually fully acquired and redeveloped the building. This is the building, this is the Trump Hotel. They put an astronomical amount of money into redeveloping this building. This had been known as the old post office. It housed a cafeteria. It was a decrepit, dilapidated building, and the Trump Organization acquired it and turned it into what they called DC's only 5-star hotel, or at least downtown DC's only 5-star hotel. The most ritzy, high-priced, and luxurious hotel in the entire city. And they've been able to charge the highest, or they were able to charge the highest per-night room rates in the entire city at that hotel. And it was extremely ornate inside. It was a hotel that seemed to be out of a dream. The couches were extremely lavish. The floors had like gold embedded in the tile work. They had this giant, the remnants of the giant interior courtyard edifice thing were turned into like gold chandelier, I don't know, supports. And like the lobby of that hotel is just absolutely crazy. And that's where the bar is, and that's where like all kinds of other really fancy restaurants are. And Donald Trump has made an absolute killing on operating this hotel and selling these really, really, really expensive rooms. The Ivanka Trump massage parlor that was in that hotel was extremely expensive, and you can still go get a drink there. These are some of the prices of getting food and drinks in the lobby of what was the Trump Hotel there. Again, 1 block away from the FBI headquarters. You can get caviar here for $255. You can get a glass of champagne for, I guess, $50 or $60, depending on which one you choose. You can get half a dozen oysters for $30. That's a steal. Or you can get a full dozen for $54. Or you can get this seafood tower for $170 at what was the Trump Hotel. Simultaneously, you can get this series of cocktails. You can get an hourglass cocktail, which is, it looks like a vodka cocktail with lemon juice, for $32. You could get this Sazerac rye cocktail for $30 with peach liqueur. You could get this, I don't even know what that one is, another cocktail for $30, and then you could get this State House cocktail, $55 for a cocktail. So it's pricey. A very, very, very pricey hotel, the ritziest hotel in all of Washington, D.C. When Donald Trump was president in 2017, he owned this hotel, or his family did anyway. In theory, he had divested from his organization, but he owned this hotel. He also opposed the relocation of the FBI headquarters. Well, if the FBI headquarters were to leave its location 1 block from his hotel, that site of the FBI headquarters would be turned into a $95 million mixed-use mega project. And part of that proposal was to build DC's first ever 6-star hotel. If built, that hotel would have basically rendered the Trump Hotel a second-tier offering in the heart of Washington, D.C. And Trump and his organization would no longer be the ritziest game in town, and they would lose money. Donald Trump opposing the FBI headquarters back in 2017 had everything to do with the proximity to his Trump Hotel. Why is his tune changed now? Now Donald Trump is perfectly happy for the FBI headquarters to move away. Of course, he no longer owns the Trump Hotel. Now he doesn't care. In fact, now he's actually kind of a fan of replacing the FBI headquarters with a $95 million mixed-use mega project. Part of the reason he's a fan of that is that doing so would help the city of Washington raise revenues, and if they were able to raise revenues, it would help them justify the case that they need to publicly fund the development of a new stadium for the Washington Commanders. D.C. is trying to get the former Redskins, the Commanders, to move back into Washington, D.C., and they pledged over $1 billion in public money to help the Commanders move back into Washington. I'm showing this as a joke because these cups were some kind of a cruel misprint. Team-branded merchandise showing that the Washington, D.C. Commanders perhaps exist in the state of Washington. So it happens when you make all your stuff in China or some other country like that where they don't know anything about American geography. They made mugs with the state of Washington printed on the Commanders' materials. Donald Trump is, for some reason, he's a really big fan of the new second-year quarterback of the Commanders, Jaden Daniels. Somehow Trump just really vibes with this guy, and he wants the Commanders to move back into Washington. And the city council of Washington is really like, boy, I don't know if we should give $1 billion to this sports team. And Trump's like, oh, just do it. And it helps bolster the case if you've also, as the executive, moved the FBI out and moved $95 million of potential new revenue into the city. It's all just development deals. Donald Trump's a real estate guy. He all he cares about is development deals. But there's more to it than that. Because news came out just a few months ago, prior to the decision that they were going to move the FBI headquarters, that Donald Trump and his team, having been, I guess, forced to sell their hotel, are actually behind the scenes in talks to reclaim the prized D.C. hotel. Donald Trump is trying to regain ownership of what is currently the hotel owned by the Waldorf Astoria. See, back in 2017, Donald Trump wanted the value of that hotel to be as high as possible because and so he didn't want to have to, didn't want there to be the ability to build another hotel across the street that would be even ritzier. But now Donald Trump is trying to buy that hotel back. And so now Donald Trump wants the price of the Trump Hotel to be as low as possible because he wants to be able to negotiate with Waldorf Astoria to buy back that hotel at bottom dollar. Donald Trump now has the power of the executive. He can make a competitor appear across the street from the Trump Hotel with the stroke of a pen. All he has to do is move the FBI headquarters. He is playing the most Trumpian of leverage games against Waldorf Astoria to force them to sell their hotel back to him. And the second that they do, the second that Donald Trump reacquires his D.C. hotel, Mark it down. I will eat another hat if the FBI relocation deal isn't closed and canceled once more within about a week. Watch this play out over the next 6 months. First, you will see the headlines that the Trump organization is reacquiring the Waldorf Astoria. Within a few weeks of that, you will see that Trump has signed an executive order to cancel the relocation of the FBI deal. Because once he's got that hotel back in his hands, he sure as hell doesn't want any competitors moving in across the street. So, while there may be secret tunnels and bodies getting executed underground and all kinds of nefarious secret things happening on the 7th floor of the FBI headquarters, the reality is that most things in Washington, D.C., while there is lots of weird illegal stuff happening behind the scenes, and probably there is stuff going on in that building that is very untoward, allegedly. The reality is that most things in Washington, D.C. are far less about the grand conspiracy theory and much, much, much more about your run-of-the-mill, narcissistic, greedy, everyday corruption in which every individual is out for their own personal best interests. At the end of the day, much as Donald Trump may want to out the Epstein files, curry favor with the masses, much as he may want to protect himself from being outed on some Epstein list or something like that, whatever the conspiracies are, at the end of the day, Donald Trump cares a hell of a lot more about money. At the end of the day, he probably cares a hell of a lot more about the personal aggrandizement of his company. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's a totally genuine good guy, but it would be very much out of character. Corruption trumps conspiracy. And sometimes conspiracy is corruption, but like most people in Washington are very corrupt. They're selfish, they're greedy, just like everyone else. They just have more power. They seek power so they can do more selfish, corrupt things. Always trust the corruption more than anything else. So, is the FBI headquarters actually leaving Washington, D.C.? The answer is, it depends on whether Donald Trump gets his hotel back or not. Time will tell. But just watch. If you want to see D.C. corruption play out in real time, watch those 2 news stories materialize in short order. We'll come back and report on that when it does. Galazzo says allegedly. See, like, now I'm a little worried because I've insinuated things here. I've raised things. Of course, everything this is all out in the public ether. But I have raised things on here, and I don't want the FBI coming after me. You know, I don't want that. And so I'm sure they're really great. They're really great. There's no corruption. There's no nefariousness. It's all great. I'm not, like, if anything happens to me, like, in the next week or two, as a result of doing this stream, it wasn't my doing. Just to make that clear. What if Donald Trump turns the FBI building into another hotel? He's not going to do that, Spyman, because the site of the FBI headquarters today is one of the most prized sites in all of D.C. real estate. It is such an incredibly central location in Washington that every real estate developer imaginable is like salivating over the opportunity to develop on that site. Whoever ends up acquiring that site, whatever development company acquires that site, is going to pay such an astronomical amount of money for the rights to that site because they have to compete against everybody else for that site. There is zero chance that the Trump organization is going to be the buyer, because the Trump organization likes good deals, and this is going to be a very bad deal for whoever acquires it. I think he'd probably also get taken to court. Like I don't know that like you can like be the government. You can like be the government executive and like issue like, you know, solicit bids for the property and then like yourself buy the bid. Like that would be the ultimate corruption. Oh, maybe he'll do it. You know, that just seems awfully corrupt. It's like there's almost like, you know, sometimes like you go to Paris and it's like you get the wine and the cheese and the, you know, it's all pretty and romantic and walkable, and it's like really, it kind of gets in your bones, like it's got this sort of character and culture to it. You go to LA and everybody's like, it's all like about the movies and like it's all, you get this sort of Hollywood culture in your DNA. So people come to Washington D.C. because they want to just sort of like be immersed in like weaselly corruption all around them. It's like you just bathe in corruption. It's so nice. It gets addictive. It's in your bones. Isn't corruption the best? And once you've had like a little taste of corruption, you just want more and more and more and more. You just want to like see the most egregiously in your face, like just narcissistic, corrupt dealings. You want to see people paying each other off for the most like repulsive of things. You want to see like naked deals just in your face all the time. It's a culture. It's a culture of this beautiful city. I say like DC is like cold and sterile, and it's, you know, it's like a big just government city. It's like it doesn't have the depth of culture of like New York City. Like hell yes it does. You just have to learn to love corruption more. You have to learn to love, to enjoy corruption in the same way and for the same reasons that when you go to the beach, you want that smell. That smell when you walk out onto the beach. It smells fresh and fishy, like seashells. You come to Washington, you go in a smoky, wood-paneled, dark back room, like, I don't know, the Hamilton, the Old Abbott Grill. You strike up a pipe, get that room all smoky, get that little hat over your head, those sort of sunglasses, your black suit, and you just start dealing. You start trading money for political favors. You start just trading little corrupt deeds back and forth and back and forth, and get the private sector and the public sector all intertwined. You get lobbyists and lawyers, politicians and donors, all together, just dancing a little game of money trading. Just the kinds of deals you want to go like tell everyone about, but you know if you tell anyone you're going to like end up in federal prison for years and years and years, so you got to go buy off the feds so that then you don't go to federal prison, and then you're just fine, and then nobody really understands it years later when the stuff comes out, and you never got punished for it, and you find out that like the FBI was just in on it the whole time. Kind of stuff where like the person who actually knows the truth just like mysteriously disappears someday. They're like taking a bath and they like trip in the bathtub mysteriously, and like that's the end of them, even though it was like the most sure-footed person you ever knew. And you put out, imagine the thrill when you get to put out that press release. You know, you work for the FBI or whatever, you get to put out that press release of like, uh-oh, oopsie, Mr. Whistleblower just mysteriously disappeared. Oops. This is like, you gotta embrace the romance. You gotta embrace the romance that DC represents. People go to Napa, you know, and they want like, they're like, oh, I'm gonna sit there, I'm gonna like feel that like warm California air, and I'm gonna sip on like an over-oaked champagne looking out over the mountains, and it's gonna be all vineyardy and like it sort of washes over you. Come to DC. Breathe in the smoke. You know, bring a couple of decks of cards, a briefcase or two full of $100 bills. You go to Vegas, you know, to gamble. Come to DC and go like bribe a few lobbyists. Go to Butterworth's over there on Capitol Hill. Slip Steve Bannon a couple of $1,000 bills. It'll get in your DNA. It'll get addictive, and then you'll never want to go back to Paris or Napa or the beach ever again. You just want to come back to Washington. It's like money, 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 corruption. You know, pour sludge in a river somewhere and pay off a politician. Have I sold you guys on the romance of this wonderful city? If not, I will take it up on the next time we stream. I don't know which cocktail is the best cocktail to sip on while you make your nefarious backroom deals. I kind of want the shortbread cookies, so I might splurge on that estate house. Otherwise, I think I'm going for that Courier, just because I like rye. Guys, if you haven't dropped a like or subscribe on the video, I appreciate if you would. The likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you guys know when we're on. Check the description for the link to our Discord, as well as the link to our Duck Fund. If you send enough money to the Duck Fund, I will personally take you to the Trump Hotel and buy you an estate house. Imagine if we did our land speculation meetup in DC at the Trump Hotel. A very expensive night. No, calm in chaos. I am dead serious. To anybody who's watching this video, if you are a regular on this channel and you want to pay me $55 plus applicable taxes and tip and whatever other bullshit fees they tack onto this, whatever the bill ends up being for your drink, if you want to pay for an estate house, I will personally take you for a drink in the lobby of the Trump Hotel. Send me a note, landspeculation@gmail.com. And then we can go to Butterworth's and we can meet Steve Bannon. It better be a damn good cocktail for $55. I think you can get a beer there for like $28 or something. I have to check. But that wouldn't be nearly as classy. Okay, I don't know. Anything else, guys? I'm not kidding about it, guys. Oh, I'm bummed. I'm bummed the Florida Panthers lost. I was going to have a screwdriver, but it won't fit in this damn tube. You have a blender, Berkey? How strong the blade on a blender is. Might make the screwdriver more consumable. We'll probably just turn it into like a powder, though. Probably need to put it in water or something. Probably tastes really bad. Very metallic. The plastic might be worse for you, though, than the metal, actually. I will not treat you to $255 Royal Beluga caviar, however. I guess if you get the cheap stuff, you can get it for $160. But I bet the Beluga is much better. I wonder if you get free refills on the crackers that come with it. You'd be very judicious about how much caviar you end up using on each cracker. Let's see. Royal Beluga caviar is the creme de la creme of caviars, an elite, rare, and eye-wateringly expensive delicacy with centuries of imperial mystique behind it. It comes from the largest and oldest sturgeon species in the world, native to the Caspian Sea. It is served with, I guess so. The egg is usually like a very large egg, light in color, silver gray to pearl, incredibly delicate in texture. Beluga sturgeon can live over 100 years. Take 15 to 25 years to produce roe. Caviar harvest often means killing the fish, so long production cycles plus low supply equals sky-high prices. Wild beluga caviar is banned in the U.S. due to its endangered status, though farm-raised varieties like those from Italy, Israel, or China are allowed under tight control. A single ounce of royal beluga caviar often sells for between $300 to $600. That must be really diluted caviar if you're getting restaurant caviar for $255. Usually very large pearls that are silky, buttery, and extremely delicate. They burst softly. It is mild, creamy, and not fishy. It tastes like notes of hazelnut, butter, and ocean brine with a long, luxurious finish. Royal beluga caviar is generally produced in Iran, Italy, Israel, China, Bulgaria, and Poland. If you order it, you should always ask for Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species documentation. It is required that they provide that for legal international sale. If they don't provide it, you know you're getting ripped off. You gotta be a little careful sometimes. Never use a metal spoon for royal beluga caviar. Use mother of pearl, horn, or plastic to avoid metallic taste. This is the rarest, most luxurious caviar on the planet. It's subtle, sophisticated, and symbolic. Whether you find it divine or overhyped depends on your taste, your wallet, and how much you value delicacy over history, and history over sheer punch. Well, it's a $255 gamble. Is it worth taking? Would it, I mean, it might not be worth it in terms of the taste, but wouldn't it be worth it for the memories? Imagine if you chomp into that caviar and it like bursts all over the place and you spill your caviar. There's a lot of pressure on that waiter bringing it out, or waitress, to not drop it. Okay, if anybody wants to come to Washington and pay, what is that, 255 plus 55 is going to get us to $310. Is that right? $310 plus tax, plus fees, plus tip. If somebody wants to pay me, that's probably 300 and let's call it $380. If anybody wants to come to DC and pay me $380 to the Duck Fund. We will buy an estate house and some Royal Beluga caviar at the Trump Hotel. Which Trump doesn't own anymore, but still. Well, you're buying $310 worth of food. You got to give them at least $50 in tip, maybe $60. Actually $380 might be a little light because you're gonna have to pay your taxes and your fee. Make it $400. So it's a lot. It's a lot of money, and you'll get one cocktail and a couple of bites of caviar. And an experience that you will remember for the rest of your life, and that you will tell your children and your grandchildren about, and that might be transformational. Worth the gamble. Just think of it as a corrupt bribe. Be very fitting. We'll rig the Nightbot forever after. Sure, Big Mac in DC. So there aren't that many McDonald's left in downtown DC. I don't know the answer to that. It's actually, Galazzo, I will check for you. I will check on the price of a Big Mac in DC tomorrow. I don't know what the policy is there at the Trump Hotel on bringing in outside food. If you buy their cocktail, if you buy the $55 cocktail, can you bring in your own Big Mac to eat with it? I don't know. Okay, guys. It's getting kind of late, and so shoot me a note if you want to go get the caviar and the cocktail. Again, if you haven't done the like and the subscribe stuff, I appreciate that. The likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you guys know when we're on. Okay, I think I did that, like, not that long ago. Okay, who's our winner tonight here? Winner is Galazzo. Galazzo. That's well earned. Thanks for hanging out with us, Galazzo. Congratulations on the victory. Very nice job. Alright guys, thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to, I guess, come back and do other interesting stuff, hopefully in the future. I got actually several stuff I've been working on. So, several things I've been working on. How much caviar can you buy with 3 cents? I don't think you can buy caviar with 3 cents, but you might be able to buy, I don't know what the hell you could buy with 3 cents. Not very much. True. You would only owe me $379.97, and that does sound like less than $380. Okay, guys, we'll be back. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks to our mods, Jeanette and Bequevius, for being patient with us here at the outset, and good hanging out with you guys, as always. Thanks for hanging out with us. Okay, well, that's it, I guess. Anticlimactic end. Reach out if you want to, do weird stuff in DC. All right. We'll be back. Don't be strangers. This is Land, that ancient speculation. And for now, I hope you all have a good night.
I essentially asked for permission